We are taught that loyalty is a transaction, a reciprocal bond where devotion is rewarded with protection. But what happens when the very system you bleed for turns its blade against your throat? Most believe that such profound betrayal breaks a person, validating surrender, bitterness, or retreat into obscurity. Yet history conceals a terrifying renegade truth. The ultimate crucible of betrayal is not a death sentence for your ambition, but the exact forge required to strip away the illusion of external salvation. To understand this, you must look past the superficial advice of simply moving on and examine a darker, more potent form of psychological endurance. The ancient philosophy of Stoicism, the practice of maintaining internal equilibrium by separating what you can control from what you cannot, offers a foundation. But mere acceptance is not enough when the walls are collapsing. You must weaponize that acceptance. When you are entirely abandoned, your internal architecture is the only structure left standing. Consider the late 16th century, during the perilous era of the Joseon dynasty. Admiral Yi Sun-sin stood as the absolute bulwark against a massive, invading force. He was a master of naval warfare, an innovator who revolutionized combat with the legendary turtle ship, an armored vessel that shattered enemy lines with ruthless efficiency. His victories were unparalleled, his devotion to his nation absolute. By all conventional metrics of success and loyalty, he should have been elevated to the highest echelons of power. Instead, his brilliance bred catastrophic envy within the royal court. Stripped of his rank, arrested and brutally tortured by the very government he had sworn to protect, he was cast down into the darkest abyss of disgrace. The physical agony of the rack was nothing compared to the psychological mutilation of total abandonment. He was reduced to a common foot soldier, his life's work dismantled by the fragile egos of incompetent superiors. The human mind typically fractures under such immense injustice. This psychological fracturing is often rooted in cognitive dissonance, the severe mental discomfort experienced when your core beliefs clash violently with your current reality. You believe you are righteous, yet you are punished as a traitor. To resolve this agony, most individuals surrender to cynicism, letting the dissonance destroy their sense of purpose. But a rare few refuse this path. They do not demand the world make sense. They impose their own order upon the chaos. While he languished in obscurity, the naval forces he had meticulously built were annihilated by the enemy due to the catastrophic ineptitude of his replacements. The nation faced total subjugation. In a desperate panic, the court reinstated the disgraced commander. He returned to find his grand fleet reduced to ashes. He was left with a mere 13 ships to defend the entire peninsula against an encroaching armada of 133 enemy vessels. The situation was mathematically hopeless. It is here that we witness the breathtaking intersection of extreme tactical preparation and stoic psychological endurance. A lesser mind would have seen those 13 ships as a final insult, a suicide mission orchestrated by a cowardly king. But the renegade does not deal in the currency of fairness. When the external world offers you nothing but ash, you do not mourn the fire. You forge steel from the embers. His composure remained absolute, chillingly devoid of vindictiveness. He did not retreat, nor did he charge blindly into a glorious, futile death. Instead, he turned his gaze to the Myeongnyang Strait, a narrow, treacherous channel known for its violent, roaring currents. He understood that when you are vastly outnumbered, you cannot fight on the enemy's terms. You must manipulate the environment to neutralize their advantage. He spent days studying the tides, mapping the whirlpools, turning the very geography of the ocean into a weapon. Imagine the silence on the deck of his flagship on the morning of the battle. The horizon darkened with the massive silhouette of the invading fleet, 133 ships moving like a leviathan to crush his meager defense. The men around him were paralyzed by the sheer scale of their impending doom. Fear is a contagion, but so is absolute, unwavering resolve. He stood before his terrified crew, a man who had already survived the worst his own country could inflict. He declared to his men that those who seek death shall live, and those who seek life shall die. This was not mere motivational rhetoric. It was a tactical command rooted in absolute psychological liberation. He anchored his flagship in the throat of the roaring strait and held the line alone, absorbing the initial shockwave of the enemy vanguard. His mastery of the changing tides trapped the massive enemy fleet in a chaotic bottleneck, turning their overwhelming numbers into a fatal liability. This staggering victory exemplifies a profound application of existentialism, the philosophical framework asserting that individuals create their own meaning and essence through their actions, entirely independent of a chaotic, indifferent universe. He did not wait for the king to validate his worth, nor did he allow the overwhelming odds to dictate his fate. He defined his own reality in the crucible of the strait. The betrayal he suffered was irrelevant to the duty he chose to fulfill. The legacy of the turtle ship and the miracle at the strait are often taught as mere military history. But beneath the surface lies a blueprint for personal mastery. Success, in its most authentic form, is never about the accolades, the rank, or the recognition of your peers. It is about the unbreakable fidelity to your own internal standard of excellence. When you decouple your self-worth from the applause of the crowd, you become immune to their condemnation. Now turn the lens upon your own life. Where have you allowed a betrayal, a professional failure, or a profound injustice to dictate your narrative? Perhaps a mentor took credit for your work, a partner abandoned you in a crisis, or a system you trusted revealed its profound corruption. You are standing amid the wreckage of your own expectations, holding on to the bitter ledger of what you are owed. That ledger is an anchor, dragging you into the abyss. To sever that anchor, you must engage in shadow work, the psychological practice of exploring the repressed, darker aspects of your unconscious mind, including your deeply buried resentments and fears. You must confront the part of you that secretly desires to remain a victim because it feels safer than taking absolute responsibility for your survival. By integrating this shadow, you reclaim the energy previously wasted on nursing old wounds, redirecting it toward ruthless, forward momentum. The historical records, specifically his meticulous war diaries, reveal a man who felt the deep sting of sorrow and physical illness, yet never allowed these human frailties to compromise his command. He processed his grief in the silence of his tent, but presented a monolith of certainty to his men. He understood that true resilience is not the absence of suffering, but the absolute refusal to let suffering dictate your operational capacity. This is the essence of the renegade noble. You do not fight to prove your betrayers wrong. You fight because the pursuit of mastery is the only oxygen your soul can breathe. Your vengeance is not a petty retaliation, but a magnificent, undeniable competence that renders your enemies irrelevant. When you operate from this frequency, the world loses its leverage over you. You are no longer playing their game. You have built an entirely new board. Look at those who surrender to the poison of betrayal. They spend their decades recounting the story of how they were wronged, their potential calcifying into a brittle, toxic shell of cynicism. They become the architects of their own perpetual defeat, allowing a single moment of injustice to colonize their entire future. The tragedy is not that they were betrayed, but that they willingly handed the pen of their destiny over to the very people who broke them. You must reclaim that pen. The moment you accept that the universe owes you nothing, not fairness, not loyalty, not even a fighting chance, you are finally free to utilize whatever broken pieces remain. 13 ships are not a death sentence if you possess the tactical genius to weaponize the ocean itself. The betrayals you have suffered are merely the raw materials required to forge an unassailable, sovereign mindset. How will you deploy your own extreme tactical preparation in the face of insurmountable odds? It begins with a ruthless audit of your current reality. Strip away the emotion, the ego, and the narrative of unfairness. What assets remain? What hidden currents in your industry, your relationships, or your personal skill set can you leverage? You must study the tides of your own adversity until you find the exact bottleneck where your enemies will crush themselves under their own weight. As Seneca once observed, fire tests gold and adversity tests brave men. The fire of betrayal is designed to burn away the impurities of your dependence on external validation. What remains in the crucible is a hardened, concentrated core of self-leadership. This stoic resolve is not passive endurance. It is a highly active, deeply aggressive stance against the chaos of the world. It is the quiet, terrifying promise that you will not be broken. Mastering your destiny requires you to step into the roaring strait of your own life with absolute conviction. You must become the admiral of your own fractured fleet, commanding the remnants of your resources with such chilling precision that defeat becomes mathematically impossible. The world will watch in stunned silence as you build an empire from the ashes they left behind. This is not about survival. This is about a total, undeniable conquest of the self. We are conditioned to believe that power resides in titles, in the backing of institutions, or in the sheer volume of resources at our disposal. But true power, the kind that alters the course of history, is generated in the dark, isolated spaces where a human being decides that they will not yield. The 133 ships of your opposition are nothing but an illusion of dominance, waiting to be dismantled by a mind that has mastered its own fear. The currents are shifting. The armada of your doubts, your past betrayals, and your perceived limitations is closing in. You have a choice to make in this very moment. Will you surrender to the overwhelming arithmetic of your circumstances, or will you anchor yourself in the narrow strait of your own unyielding purpose? The battle is not on the horizon. It is already raging within you. Draw your sword, command the tide, and forge your own legendary defiance.